It is time for another edition of the Fight HQ podcast. Of course, I am Jason Floyd. As always, I'm joined by the fighter, Pete Rogers Jr. to talk about everything going on inside the UFC. Of course, UFC 307 goes down tomorrow night there in Salt Lake City. Of course, we have two title fights. Alex Pereira defending his light heavyweight title against Khalil Rountree Jr. And then the co-main event, Raquel Pennington defending the women's bantamweight title against the former champion, Julianna. Pena. Also, we got Jose Aldo taking on Bautista. Kayla Harrison, a massive betting favorite. She's on this fight card as well. Happy Friday, Pete. How's it going, man?
Happy Friday, my man. It's going. Happy to be back, having some fights. I'm not happy to be back with a fight card at elevation just because I already know it's going to be absolute chaos. I already know that there's going to be fights that, wind up, super volatile, even more volatile than normal. Underdogs coming through, favorites coming through despite us not agreeing with the line. So I'm expecting chaos, and it's made this card extremely difficult from a preview standpoint, from a pick standpoint, and from a DFS building standpoint as well.
Of course, appreciate everyone tuning in. Of course, unable to do a show last week because what I was dealing with here with the hurricane that was 100 miles west of the Tampa area, but did suffer some damage to my car. I will find out on Monday if the claims adjuster is going to say my car is total, which I am totally expecting. That is going to be the case. So was not expecting to be having to buy a new car here. I thought maybe a year from now I'd be having to buy a new car, but yeah, overall I am doing well. I know there was a comment there in the chat. Everything's doing good. I mean, obviously this area has been hit hard. I've lived here all my life. I've never seen storm surge like it, and just driving around, especially driving around where my parents live off the beach, and man, it just looks like an absolute war zone over there. And but yeah, everything is well here. I know there's just a lot of people, and I would just say, man, thoughts and prayers to all the people out there. But overall, I'm doing all right, and I just have to get a new car.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to see the damage. I mean, happy you're okay. Materialistic things can be replaced. It's still, a pain in the ass. You know what I mean? Having to deal with replacing a car or dealing with insurance adjusters to begin with. But thankfully you're okay. Family's okay. And that's why we weren't here last week. And some things are bigger than the MMA slates, but we were still there in the Discord channel, which is free to join below. If you guys want to always engage in some discussion with me, Jason, or the rest of the community. We're over 300 members right now, and it's just a good time from MMA to all sports alike. We're just in there talking about strategy, talking about picks, and that's one way to ensure that no matter what, you're going to be a part of some insight week to week.
And, of course, we also do have memberships available here on the YouTube channel, so we always appreciate the support. We appreciate those members that have already stepped in here. We'll be offering up some new content coming up here as you'll start seeing more UFC fighter interviews and PFL, Bellator, those type of fighters. We'll get some regional fighters on here as well. So you get to learn who some of those fighters are before we see them inside the UFC. If the last interview that's up there was with Abe. Abe got a win there, Lights Out Championship. Actually, his opponent changed on fight week. And definitely a guy that I would expect you're going to see here in the UFC here in the very near future. Of course, be sure to hit that thumbs up button right here on the video. If you're not subscribed to the channel, be sure to do that as well. We do have our DraftKings contest is already up, so you get in that contest over there for UFC 307. As Pete, we talk about game theory heading into this one, and obviously we have some massive 9,000 favorites. Alex Pereira at 9,600, Kayla Harrison at 9,800, Cesar Almeira at 9,400, Ryan Spann 9,200. Maybe the one I feel the most uncomfortable with, just because, he should go out there and beat OSP. But then I'll also say about game theory. You already brought this up. High elevation. There's one fighter I'm looking at. If this fight gets to the third round, I have concerns.
Oh, I have concerns about a lot more than just one.
No, there's one in particular. There's one in particular.
Who?
Alexander Hernandez.
Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, same here. And it's crazy because usually the heavier weight classes are volatile within the cardio, dynamic of the fight game. But I'm a guy that's trained at elevation. I can tell you, and I have not fought at elevation. I only trained at elevation, and I went out to Albuquerque, New Mexico when I was in really good shape. I was young. All I did was train. So when I went out there and I'm sitting there huffing and puffing I'm not even talking just like from the grappling standpoint, but from striking standpoint. Striking doesn't get me tired at all. I've been doing it my whole life. I was exhausted. Like, if people need to go out there and acclimate themselves, I'd say a month early, which I know not many people did. And, if you are from the area or you are from a high elevation team, it does help. Absolutely helps. It's just, this is the trickiest dynamic, a part of a Salt Lake City, Utah card, because we've seen it time and time again within the UFC. The better fighter does not always win. The fighter who is in the best shape will win come Saturday night.
I also, and I just did my other podcast, the MMA Report podcast. I did put the link in Discord if people want to check out that podcast. We talked about, a range of things. But, like one of the things I talked about in terms of the mental mindset, what happens if Tisha Pennington gets destroyed by Carla Esparza?
Oh, from a mental aspect, yeah. I mean, it's totally possible. I've always dealt with that, not from a significant other standpoint, but from a teammate standpoint.
Yeah.
Like being a coach, having my fighters fight on the undercard and me fight on the main card or be the main event, it's really tricky, right? Like, you have to be able to decompartmentalize and just kind of just like not get attached to the result, leave your emotions out of it. Despite you caring so much for them, you still have to fight that night. It's hard. I can't imagine for a significant other. Like when the Dawkins brothers used to fight on the same card and all these other brothers, and you know what I mean? Like, between family, significant others, and teammates is very tricky. We've seen it work to their benefit. Like, say Tisha goes out there and has a fantastic performance. Absolutely, that could boost, just the morale of the locker room, which then maybe Raquel goes out there and has just an absolute amazing performance. But on the flip side of that, what happens if she gets destroyed? How do you deal with that? And it's a great conversation. I think it comes down to them wanting to say that they did it, that we fought on the same card and like kind of like putting a check on that box. But it's very tricky. You got to have a great team behind you to pull that off.
Well, think about this. She is the second fight of the night. Lock time is 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. So just using it from an Eastern time perspective here, you have to imagine Raquel is going to be in the building when Tisha fights. She's going to be sitting in the back for 4 hours, 4.5 hours before she even makes the walk. Mm-hmm. And so it was something that when me and Dean were doing the show, it's something that I just kind of thought of was like, well, what if things go bad? And, and as I was just hand building a dummy lineup, it was one of those things if I sat there and said, okay, what's the path to getting to Kayla Harrison?
Yeah. And it's Carla Esparza sitting there shouting at me. You know what I mean? Like, because she's a women's MMA underdog with a fantastic takedown upside. You know what I mean? Like, she's not an easy fight. She's a former champ. And I know that Tisha looked pretty damn good against Tabitha Ricci recently. And Esparza's striking is negative, but that has not mattered for the majority of her career. Few people have been able to do, to sprawl and brawl and not be held down from Carla Esparza. Now, granted, there is an absence from the cage from Carla. There was an absence from Tisha. So you have to take that. I mean, this game's getting stupid. You know what I mean? Like, this prediction stuff is very difficult. It is stressful. Oh, it's very stressful because it's like there's so many things to go into it. And then you can put everything out there and it makes sense. And then come fight night, none of it matters because it's fighting.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's, as I was just kind of developing a lineup, I'll flat out tell you, I started my lineup with two fighters. They are two fighters that are both in the high 7,000 range. Jose Aldo and Julianna Pena. And we'll get into Pena here in a moment. She hasn't fought in 2 years. Yeah. What's it going to be like? I will say this, from a promotional aspect, guarantee you, the UFC is praying Julianna Pena wins and Kayla Harrison wins. You just saw the back and forth between those two just yesterday. They've had back and forth before on social media. That's clearly what the UFC wants here. Like, if you, like I brought this up to Daniel. If you tell me Khalil Rountree pulls this thing off tomorrow night, am I going to be shocked? No, because it's MMA. Because it's MMA, it stylistically, we know what this matchup's going to be, even though it's still kind of, I'm still baffled that we're talking on October 4th, 2024, and Khalil Rountree is going to be fighting for a UFC title tomorrow night, and he's coming off a suspension for PEDs.
It's annoying. It's annoying.
To me, it's twofold. It's about what the light heavyweight division in the UFC currently is, and B, they don't want Magmed and Kalaev holding their title. It is very clear. Here's another game theory thing I'll throw it to you as well.
All right, go ahead. We've
talked about this over the past couple episodes. The UFC has directly and indirectly told people, we don't want you being wrestle humpers. There's a guy on this card I point to in terms of that. Has he gotten the message? Because it's a clear path to victory.
Is it Joaquin?
Yes.
Yeah. I still think like you can wrestle, but you need to wrestle towards the finish. You know what I mean? Like I think like
correct.
They're getting in the ear. You know what I mean? Like you can wrestle, but wrestle towards a submission finish or wrestle towards some ground and pound. And look what Joaquin Buckley did recently to Vicente Luque. Like the ground and pound was devastating. So that's totally fine. That's still exciting in their eyes. But going out there and being a Carla Esparza, just like laying and praying, being a blanket, and just take down and control, that's not what they're looking for. So it's another dynamic, a part of this prediction game where it's like, I know, and you know, that matchmakers are trying to influence outcomes of fights, of course.
Of course.
Just like, you know, indirectly or directly. It's just like they hope for certain things to happen. Now, from Alex Pereira's standpoint, it's good that he's going up against a guy who has no takedown threat. You can really unleash. The flip side, same with Khalil. Khalil doesn't have to worry about getting taken down. So this is a striker's delight. And I'm massively favoring Alex Pereira. But, like, still, you know, like, if you have an ace up your sleeve, use it in this game. And, like, I mean, honestly, Alex Pereira can go out. We've seen Alex Pereira having wars with Sean Strickland on social media. Like, he can go out there and take Khalil down and sub him. I'm probably going to do a D-Gen bet on just an Alex Pereira sub, just because he wants to get one for Glover, just as like a thank you. You know what I mean? Like, I think like one of these days it may happen. And I mean, in a war, in a back and forth close fight, I can totally see it happening. But yeah, there's so many aspects a part of this fight card. It's deeper than just fights. That's why I really like the Apex for me personally, because it was like just got to deal with it, and then you had to deal with, well, some fighters feed off the crowd, and some fighters are kind of shutting down. So it's just a fight game. You know how it is. I know how it is. Happy to be back though. Not my favorite card to be breaking down, truthfully, but let's get into it.
And Pete Warner in the chat talked about doing a climb in Albuquerque the day after a concert. He goes, "I've never been more gassed in my life." I remember
people have no idea.
The first time I went to Denver, and someone basically said, like, "Hey Jay, y'all can't party like y'all party in Tampa. This altitude will get to you quick."
But yeah, I can totally see it, bro. I'm telling you, people have no idea, and even high level athletes. I would consider myself a high level athlete.
Of course,
especially back then. That was a game changer, and it really. I remember Cowboy just sitting there cracking up, laughing at me. He goes, "Things are different out here, huh, Pete?" And then I was just like, "Bro." And the amount of cardio we did on top of it to kind of replicate it. I mean, there's a reason why people go to Big Bear. There's a reason why people, go to Denver and they incorporate that type of training. Like, it's such an advantage.
Oh, no doubt about it. Let's get right into our main event here. Alex Pereira defending the light heavyweight title against Khalil Rountree Jr. Of course, Alex is a 5-1 betting favorite, plus 350 for Khalil. Over on DK, Alex 9,600 on FanDuel. He's 22. Where for Rountree, he's $614 over there on FanDuel. Alex does have a 3-inch reach advantage in this one. You look at the strikes landed per minute, 5.23 for Alex, 3.84 for Khalil Rountree. The one thing that really sticks out to me about Khalil Rountree, yes, he has this winning streak, Pete, but you're talking about Modestas Bukauskas, Carl Roberson, Dustin Jacoby, Dawkins, Anthony Smith. Now, if you had said that win against Anthony Smith was 4 years ago, you'd be like, okay, that's a great win. But like it's kind of like when we talk about Jose Aldo and Mario Bautista later, like it's a massive step up in competition that Mario Bautista is going to and taking on Jose Aldo. And I look at Khalil Rountree Jr. here and I'm like, man, this is a massive step up in competition.
Yeah, it is a massive step up in competition. It's really hard for me to back a guy who lost to Marcin Prachnio. I'm just going to tell you how it is. And, like, you can call me a hater. It just is what it is. I know that he may have gotten better since then. Granted, that was back in 2021. The side kick to the knee, the oblique kick against Modestas Bukauskas, fluky. Roberson, not good. Dustin Jacoby, very talented, very good. I remember Khalil was huffing and puffing in that fight, and it was close, so close that I actually thought that Jacoby won that bout. From a score standpoint, scored 64 against Dawkins, knocked him out. Chinny guy 107, and against Anthony Smith 78. He does not have flawless victories, so like he's hitting people, but he's also absorbing a lot of shots too, and that's my problem with Khalil Rountree, is that he does possess the power to knock out Alex Pereira. Absolutely. I like Pereira so much more here at 205 than I did at 185 from a weight cutting standpoint, from a durability standpoint. His frame, he's a massive man, and I just think that he can take a shot better. Granted, people hit a lot harder at this division, so maybe it's untested. But from everything I've seen, I just prefer Alex Pereira here at 205. And I think like it's not like he's an undersized 205 because he was a former middleweight. He's huge. He's huge. He's a damn heavyweight if he wants to be. So from the power aspect, Pereira still has the advantage despite Khalil being dangerous. So like Pereira, he gets really comfortable about slipping and ripping and allowing his opponents to throw their shots so he can capitalize on a counter or intercepting them with shots as they're throwing. He's got to be careful. Right, he's got to be careful. He relies so much on his reactions and his timing that perhaps he doesn't see one, and that's all it takes, and he gets knocked out. I'm not going to be picking for that to happen. I just don't see Khalil being the guy. He's also from a team that I don't have a lot of faith in. You know this, Jason. I don't know. I think like it's not like he's going out there and obliterating everybody in round one. Khalil's dangerous. But like I said, it's not flawless. And for other fighters to be landing so many significant strikes on him, I think that Alex Pereira has the power to shut the lights out. And just being so versatile too. Like Pereira isn't just a striker. Isn't just a puncher. He can kick really well, as evidenced in the Yuri Prochazka fight. And his low kicks, they are brutal, and they really minimize his opponent's mobility. And I will tell you, I know it's completely unexpected, but like the fact that he's grappling Glover Teixeira, grappling Sean Strickland, I think there's an avenue for him to take down Khalil Rountree and either incorporate brutal ground and pound as he did against his name is Jamal Hill. Like when he got on top, man, goodness gracious, the ground and pound is brutal. But also, I think there's a submission aspect that's not really talked about. So I will be placing small money on Alex Pereira to win via submission. But I just think in general, I think that he finishes Khalil Rountree, and it's a perfect fight to build the legacy of Alex Pereira. He stepped in on short notice. Stylistically, I think this is a favorable one. He doesn't have to worry about the takedowns of Magomed Ankalaev. Doesn't have to worry about, being selective with his shots. He can go out there and free range a strike. So I'm excited to see it. Alex Pereira by finish inside of 2 rounds.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the submission prop, by the way, plus 1,600 for submission, and that TKO prop minus 330. So, I mean, look, it's
minus 330. Oh,
yeah,
geez.
for doing my TKO KO. Yeah, I mean, are you really surprised?
No, I mean it makes sense. It's not going 5 rounds. So
no,
I
wonder if it goes a little longer than maybe anticipated. I'm wondering it wouldn't shock me if this thing hits the 3rd round,
bro. I cannot get over how Rountree got his ass kicked by Marcin Prachnio. And granted that was 3 years ago. The guy that lost to Prachnio cannot beat Alex Pereira.
Yeah, that to me is always. I mean, how often do we sit here and talk about it on this show where you're like, you want to be able to forget what happened in a certain fight. You really want to forget about, like, hey, you look bad in that matchup, but it's always going to be in our mindset of like, oh my God, I still can't forget how bad you looked in X matchup.
Yeah, bro. Like,
and the other thing,
absurd.
I saw a clip on X where Khalil was on Demetrius Johnson's podcast, and he talked about the fact that he almost retired from MMA just because he wanted to be able to take Muay Thai fights. So something to play in there. But yeah, I'm with you. I think Alex gets the job done. Now, our co-main event is for the women's bantamweight title. We got Raquel Pennington making her title defense here as she is challenged by Julianna Pena. Pena a plus 140 betting underdog, minus 170 for Pennington. Pennington 8,400 DK, $18 on FanDuel. Pena 7,800 on DK, $15 on FanDuel. And earlier this week, I text Pete, and when I saw these DraftKings lines, I was like, man, I just kind of, even though she hasn't fought in 2 years, hasn't been a very active fighter over the past 4 years, I just feel like when we're talking about DraftKings, I just feel like a lot of people are going to look at that salary of Julianna Pena, Pete, the fact that a 5-round nature probably goes 5 minutes, that she is going to be a very popular play.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't thinking so until you sent me that text. And then I was like, okay, well, it is women's MMA. It's an underdog, former champ technically. And I'm like, all right, well, let me look into it. And I'm like, man, just the metrics and from the fight film, Pena is sloppy, right? Like, Pena is so sloppy. So from an optics standpoint, it's hard to back her. It really is. It's hard to back her. Like, you watch her training, you watch her fights, and I see a lot of mistakes. In certain ones, she seems green. In certain ones, she seems volatile. In others, she seems aggressive. And when she's able to put a pace on people and incorporate her wrestling, she's at her best. When she's at range throwing horrific strikes, I have a hard time backing her. I will say that Raquel Pennington did impress me against Mayra Bueno Silva, and it's because she's crisp. She's very crisp in all areas. She seems well prepared, but throughout her career, she's been taken down and then, works back to her feet. And we've also seen her quit. And it's just such a crazy, crazy fight. And now you have an absence from the cage weighing in on this fight. And it's like, you don't necessarily know the real Julianna Pena that we're going to get. I always loved Pena's wrestling about her. I truly did. Now, I will say that Julianna Pena is a part of one of the teams that I know personally. Valley Flow Striking. Look what Bilal Muhammad did. They prepare so well. Look at Ignacio Bahamondes. My boy Mike Valley. I've been saying it. I met him out in New Mexico, and we've been friends ever since. He's a fantastic coach, and he prepares his team. It's not just him, but the team prepares really well, and they have sneaky wrestling to them. Like Bilal training with Ignacio Bahamondes helped Bilal striking, and Bilal helped Ignacio's wrestling. It helped him develop that sprawl and brawl type of approach to the fight game. So I think that Julianna Pena is in an interesting spot. And the more I think about it, the more I do want to get to the underdog a little bit more than I anticipated, more than I thought that I was going to, because I think she's going to have to wrestle. At range, I think she's going to struggle because Raquel Pennington has the better striking. She has sneaky submissions to her as well. Good front chokes, good bulldog choke, and solid volume. So, like, submitting Macy Chasson, that aged completely well, picking up a victory over Aspen Ladd, Ketlen Vieira, and then most recently Mayra Bueno Silva. She was able to have a ton of control time. I don't necessarily know if she's going to be able to have that control time here. And I literally, like 10 minutes ago, I was on Raquel Pennington until I'm just feeling the wrestling might come into play a little bit more than anticipated. And it's going to be close rounds. So close rounds, close volume, in addition to wrestling. I don't want to do it, Jason. I think I'm going to pick Julianna Pena. I think I'm going to pick Julianna Pena.
I've been thinking Pena all week long. Now, I will say this: my one fear in this equation is the fact of the 2-year layoff. Both
100%.
these fighters are at an age range of 36 and 35 years old, where this is typically where we start to kind of see the downside of the career. So that's kind of where I'm sitting at a little bit there. But I look at it and I say, in a week where I'm trying to find value, talking about it from a DFS perspective here, Pete, Julianna Pena is one of those ones, potential takedown upside here. I would say this. I would, if you want to look at bet and you want to take Julianna Pena, I would just take the money line plus 140. But if I was going to chase one of these props, I think I'd chase the decision prop at plus 275.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't see a KO, TKO. I don't see a sub. She could take the back, possibly. I mean, she was able to finish Amanda Nunes. That's fluky. I wish I called that. I didn't. I backed her on the rematch. She got her ass kicked. So, like,
not if you listen to her.
Really?
Oh, she's delusional when it comes to rematch. Oh, yeah, she's delusional.
Okay, but, bro, mental warfare, like, Pena's strong with the mental warfare. I will say. She really is.
I will tell you, man, I think she's losing these battles against Kayla Harrison.
Oh, yeah, 100%. But she's definitely going to win the mic moments. She definitely lost against Kayla Harrison. Kayla's good on the mic. But, like, against Raquel Pennington's just too soft-spoken. But, yeah, I think it's a close fight. Now, could you and granted, I'm talking from a DFS standpoint that I think I like Pena more than I like Pennington. From a pick standpoint, I'd stay the hell away. I just would stay the hell away. Could you stack it?
You could. I think you could also find leverage in Pennington, I would imagine. Because I just feel like people are going to look at that 7,800 on Pena and go, she's beat the GOAT. Getting a discount here.
Yeah. I'm going to have a weird-ass lineup, and literally 15 minutes ago, I had a completely different mindset. I would rather get to Pena than get to Rountree.
I agree about that. I mean, look, unfortunately, I think to get Kayla Harrison, you might have to put Rountree in your lineup.
No.
I'm telling you, man, I think you might have to.
I got a nice lineup right here. I ain't got Rountree. Get the hell out of here.
I'm trying to remember who I put I'm trying to remember outside of Pena and Aldo, who did I put as a low-level play?
Oh, I got a couple.
I think I put Hubbard in there. But I'll have to check to see what it was.
I currently have 4 of them, so we shall see.
We shall see on that. Let's move over to the next matchup. We got Jose Aldo taking on Mario Bautista. Jose Aldo is a plus 120 betting underdog, minus 140 for Bautista. Bautista, $8,500 on DK, $15 on FanDuel. Jose Aldo, $7,700 on DK, and $14 on FanDuel. Pete, the thing that sticks out to me about this matchup is, look, I think we both can admit that Jose Aldo is on the downside of his career. But this is a massive, massive step up in competition when you're talking about who Mario Bautista has been facing recently.
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, like Ricky Simone, Blackshear, Canetti, Lopez, and Kelleher, none of those are Jose Aldo. Jose Aldo recently, Marlon Vera, Pedro Munoz, Rob Font, Merab Dvalishvili, and Jonathan Martinez. Now, I will tell you that stylistically, this is an intriguing one because Jose Aldo isn't the guy from the WEC, the guy from early, UFC dominating the featherweight division with his low kicks. He brought him back in his previous bout, but like he's a more patient boxer than he used to be in the past. He used to be a ferocious killer, going out there, throwing high volume, being super aggressive, having the best takedown defense in the history of the sport, and just going out there and just letting it all out. He was able to get past Pedro Munoz in a close fight. He's able to get past Rob Font, luckily, because of the knockdowns. Defended all 16 takedown attempts from Merab Dvalishvili, which in hindsight is extremely impressive, right? Like, look what Merab did to Sean O'Malley, and look what he's done to the whole division. And then got a win over a striker in Jonathan Martinez that kind of overperformed throughout his entire career and just kind of was starstruck in the moment. I look at Mario Bautista, and I understand that he got knocked out to Trevin Jones by a big shot. I think he's good. I've been saying this kid Mario Bautista is good for a very long time. He has excellent jiu-jitsu skills, good wrestling, very good striking, and high volume and high pace. The pace of Mario Bautista is something that I think can come into the equation here in this fight. Just because I'm not expecting a finish. I'm expecting a 15-minute decision. And the better minute winner, in my opinion, will be Mario Bautista. I don't think he's going to be able to take down Jose Aldo. But the bigger moments probably will reside with Jose Aldo. So then you're going to come down to damage versus volume. And I think we've seen Jose be a little too patient in the past, and Mario is pretty good at movement as well. So it's not like he's sticking there right in a phone booth and just trading with terrible defense. I think that, like, people might be sleeping on Mario Bautista to spoil a Jose Aldo resurgence. Jose Aldo is a very slight underdog. I want to back him. For DFS, I think I will avoid this fight. I think either one of them, even in a win, won't score the best, because sometimes high volume just doesn't translate into the best score if there are no takedowns or knockdowns or any of that extra stuff added. I think Bautista passes the test, Jason. I really do. And maybe Jose Aldo comes out hot out the gate, but at elevation, I think maybe Bautista starts to kind of edge him out just slightly. I don't hate the dog shot on Jose Aldo, but I need a dog that will score well in a win. And I don't think he knocks out Mario Bautista. He definitely can. But I think, like, this is kind of like a changing of the guard a little bit, where people are like, wow, that's who Mario Bautista is? Bautista trains with Kyler Phillips, Sean O'Malley, the rest of the guys, Marcus McGee, all these guys at the lab. It's not like he's getting easy rounds there, and I think that he's damn good. So give me Mario Bautista to win a decision in a close fight.
I mean, you talk about one of the best bantamweight rooms in the country. I mean, obviously, you know, you're going to look at someone like an ATT, but you look outside ATT.
Mm-hmm.
The lab may be the best bantamweight room in the country. When you look at who is in that room pushing each other on a day out basis. I mean, look, I think this thing's going to go 15 minutes. That's why, from a betting perspective, it's more looking at those decision props. Aldo plus 180, Bautista plus 130. This is classic UFC matchmaking in terms of this. I mean, this is where, you know, you got the old vet, the guy that's been around for a long time, going up against the up and coming prospect, and can Mario go out there and get the job done here? And I know Ryan touched on FanDuel a little bit here. I mean, if you're looking to save salary on FanDuel, this could be a fight that you look at, but the problem is going to be is that I think it's a fight that I don't know if we have knockdowns. I don't know if we have takedowns. So the fantasy score upside may not be the best there. Andrew asked about how many dogs make the optimal. 2 minimum, 3. Yeah, you're probably going to need at least 2 dogs in your lineup. And it could well be 3. But you know, could very, you know, there's some dogs I'm intrigued on this card. I will say that. Next up, we got Roman Dolidze returning to 185 pounds, take on Kevin Holland. Holland a minus 150 betting fair, plus 125 for Dolidze. Dolidze 7,900 DK, $13 on FanDuel. Kevin Holland is 8,300 DK and $16 on FanDuel here. Pete, what's your thoughts, man?
I'm expecting to be like, you know, like, a lot of these fights are so damn tricky. I mean, Roman Dolidze has the frame, the power, and the strength to beat Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland's kryptonite is, 185ers who have a wrestling or grappling advantage over him that can incorporate takedowns, that can stall him against the cage and win minutes. Roman Dolidze, if he pins Kevin Holland against the cage, is going to win. He's got to keep him there, though. Kevin Holland's rangy. He's very, very good. His submission skills are sneaky as well. He is just a very crafty veteran to this point. Excellent striking. I just don't love his wrestling all that much. His takedown defense is something that's been improving. The Michael Chiesa performance of him defending 4 or 5 takedowns against Chiesa, in hindsight, looks great, right? Like Tony Ferguson couldn't do any of that. Even though I wanted Tony to win. But Kevin Holland is just dangerous. He's long, but I do prefer him at welterweight. I don't like these fights where he has to deal with a grappler all that much, but everybody's going to want to wrestle him. Dolidze's a guy I never really thought was all that great. Like, I look at Dolidze and I'm like, man, I'm just not sold. I'm pretty sure I picked Dawkins to beat him. That didn't work out for me. Kyle Dawkins I thought was going to beat him because he had jiu-jitsu. He had volume striking, but he got pinned against the cage and he got kneed in the face. I think this goes 15 minutes. And Dolidze, despite, trying to acclimate himself to the elevation, I think he's still going to be a step behind in the cardio department. I think that Kevin's just a worker, and Kevin will work at a higher pace. I think that Kevin will hopefully not get taken down. It's a fight that's very, very tricky. I'm going to be picking Kevin Holland here, but I'm not all that convinced that it's going to be a great performance either way from a DFS standpoint. I mean, if Roman Dolidze had better takedown accuracy, perhaps I would be worried. Dolidze's takedown accuracy is 40%, going up against Kevin Holland's 54% takedown defense, and I think that it's even improved beyond 54%. So yeah, I think that the length of Kevin Holland, the 5-inch reach advantage, the volume, the striking skills, Dolidze is he just swings, man. I think that Kevin Holland wins a decision here, but he has to be careful because this is a fight he can easily lose.
Yeah, I like Kevin Holland in this situation. I do wonder maybe could we see outside of the reach advantage that Holland has, is maybe a little bit of a size advantage, strength advantage for Dolidze. In this one, that would be a little bit my concern in terms of a Kevin Holland. But I mean, look, if you're looking to save salary, whether we're talking about DraftKings or on FanDuel, this is a salary savers matchup between these two guys. Next up, of course, our opening fight of the pay-per-view will be Vieira taking on Kayla Harrison. Kayla Harrison, a 13-1 betting favorite. Kayla Vieira plus 700. Ketlen is 6,400 on DK, $8 on FanDuel. Kayla 9,800 on DK, $23 on FanDuel. Kind of going back to the conversation we had at the beginning of the show here. To me, it's about I like Kayla in this spot. I just even though we've seen the takedown defense of Kayla hold up, I just think that Kayla will. And to me, the big thing with Kayla Harrison, yes, you can go back and you can watch her PFL fights, but there's a aspect of the game she couldn't utilize in the PFL, and that is elbows. And that, to me, is I think we're going to see the evolution of Kayla Harrison with her takedowns, utilizing those elbows, and we all understand she goes out there and gets a win, Pete, on Saturday, on tomorrow. She will be fighting for the title next. It's a clear path. You could have made a case that maybe she'd be fighting for the title right now and not waiting for potentially the winner here. But I think from a DFS perspective, Pete, it's just about can you fit her into a lineup that you just don't feel dirty about.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's okay to feel dirty about the lineup. I think that the dirtier the lineup feels, the more unique it probably is from a large GPP standpoint. But, Ketlen Vieira is not bad. She's solid for the division, right? The problem is that Kayla Harrison's better than every fighter within the division. She is. She's the best. And the reason I say that is because she is an Olympic gold medalist. She is a fantastic fighter training at an American top team. Her judo is second to none. Her pace is second to none. Top control. Her ground and pound is really evolving. like American Top Team. Look what Renato Moicano did last week. I mean, goodness gracious, the Benoit Saint Denis. It was one round, and Benoit looked like he got hit with a bat. I mean, like Renato Moicano incorporated ground and pound, which is something that I'm sure Porumpa is making these guys and fighters utilize a part of training now, which seems silly, but like we see the MMA game evolve and go through waves, and top control wrestlers with ground and pound might be this next period where everybody's like, oh my goodness. And I think that Kayla Harrison's going to go out there and do just that. She can get a takedown against Ketlen Vieira. Ketlen Vieira, was taken down against Miesha Tate. Like I wasn't all that impressed with Ketlen Vieira against Holly Holm. The physicality, I think that Ketlen matches up pretty well with Kayla compared to some other fighters. The problem is that Kayla's just stronger than everybody. I mean, Larissa Pacheco, in my opinion, would be right up there with Kayla Harrison in a part of the UFC's rankings. I think that she's so damn good as well. So I don't view, people may view, PFL, she lost over there in the PFL. I don't view that as a negative because I think that Pacheco's really, really good. So I almost think that helps her in a situation like this. She's fought Pacheco multiple times, and I think that she's going to go out there and make a statement against Ketlen Vieira. I think she's going to break the slate, personally. She scored 112.5 in her debut against Holly Holm. She was kind of nice about it, man. 4 minutes and 51 seconds, 2 takedowns. I don't think she's going to be all that nice against Ketlen Vieira. I think it's going to be multiple takedowns or a takedown into the most brutal ground and pound that we've seen in a very long time. She could sub Ketlen Vieira, but Ketlen Vieira's jiu-jitsu skills could probably prevent most of it. That's why I'm going to be picking Kayla Harrison via KO TKO. And I think that she's going to score 120 plus.
And when you look at that TKO KO prop for Kayla Harrison, plus 240, submission plus 300, decision prop is plus 100. I don't think this thing goes a distance. No. I was watching a clip yesterday from the press conference, and you see this happen a lot of times when a fighter comes in from a PFL or a Bellator and that UFC veteran wants to discredit anything they did and saying, oh, that's not UFC level. And I think that's a mistake to make. And, look, I will say this. I heard stories. I heard the UFC wanted to give Kayla Harrison the title shot here. It just ultimately the deal didn't come together. I'll say this right now. I think Kayla Harrison is the uncrowned UFC women's bantamweight champion.
Agree. I totally agree. I think that the fight that I've always wanted to be seeing was her against Cyborg. And I've always wanted to see Cyborg within the UFC, from a long period standpoint, because I think that she presents, many problems.
The reality of it is we were it almost happened with Cyborg Harrison.
Really?
But PFL matched the Bellator offer. There was a bout agreement, everything. But because PFL had matching rights, they matched the Kayla deal. And, and
now they're one company. How ironic is that? They shot themselves in the foot.
And now we'll never see that fight. We'll never see that fight happen.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate because it's a fight that we all wanted to see. But, yeah, it's a fight that would happen. And then, of course, could the GOAT come out of retirement? That's the other situation. And
I think so.
And
I think the GOAT will get smacked.
And that'll become Daniel was doing a podcast earlier. I thought he hit this right. Tomorrow night's a big night for women's MMA in the UFC. Just because of what it could lead to in the future of this one. But yeah, I like Kayla Harrison there. And by the way, I went on the DraftKings app. If you just start your line with Kayla Harrison, your average remaining per player is just over 8,000. So kind of give you an idea, if you want to develop a lineup with Kayla Harrison, what it's going to take to make that lineup. And
I got a lineup right here, and I'm going to be winning it all. So I'm excited.
I hope you win it all. I hope you do.
I hope you win it all because you need it because of the freaking car situation.
Yeah, I definitely need I need an influx of cash right now. Yes, there is no doubt about that one.
I hope I win it too.
Next up, we got Stephen Thompson taking on Joaquin Buckley. Stephen Thompson, plus 185 betting underdog, minus 225 for Joaquin Buckley. Buckley's 8,800 DK, $19 on FanDuel. And for Wonder Boy, he's 7,400 DK, $13 on FanDuel. And, Pete, just kind of my general thought is, like, if you're Joaquin Buckley, and the proper mindset would be to not have a striking matchup. The proper mindset would be go in there, utilize your wrestling, get this one to the ground, brutal ground and pound on the ground. But, like, you just hope that maybe the ego doesn't get the best of him here.
I don't think it will. I think that Joaquin Buckley is a lot smarter than what he's given credit for. I think that despite being cringy, despite being electric on the microphone or trying to be electric on the microphone, he's a very cerebral fighter. And you and I know this because Joaquin Buckley and I fought on the same card together in the past, way before he was in the UFC. And I remember him going up against a local here who was a fantastic fighter. And Vinicius who is it? Vinicius de Jesus?
Yeah, Vinicius de Jesus, yeah.
Yeah, and guess what? Joaquin Buckley wasn't a banger because that was a very dangerous fight. He was a wrestler. He was a grappler. And that's how I became to know Joaquin Buckley was the takedowns, the relentless takedowns, and putting it all together and being the minute winner. We've seen him go out there and engage in firefights. It's worked out. It also hasn't. Since it didn't work out and he suffered some defeats, we've seen a more cerebral fight of him going out there and really incorporating takedowns to win minutes. I think that Joaquin Buckley is on a sneaky tear over Andre Fiallo, Alex Morono, Vicente Luque, and Nursultan Ruziboev. Nursultan Ruziboev, he knocked him down. He took him down 4 times. That was an aggressive fight because Ruziboev brings the fight to you. He's a massive man. This one, I think, will be a little tricky just because opponents usually don't score the best against Stephen Thompson. The range, the feints, the fakes, the footwork, the evasiveness, the fencing matador style of Stephen Thompson really diminishes DFS scores for the most part. But when Joaquin Buckley does get inside of that range, inside of that lead leg, I think that it's going to be Joaquin Buckley's fight. And you guys know I'm the biggest Stephen Thompson guy. He's one of my favorite fighters of all time. I just think that there's the blueprint out there, and once people have the blueprint, it's so much easier for fighters to replicate it. And I do think that, Stephen Thompson, for the most part, did a good job at defending takedowns throughout his career to getting the fights back onto the feet where he could, pick people apart. Joaquin, despite Stephen Thompson getting back to his feet, needs to go back to the takedown well over and over and over and over, because I just think that's going to diminish the confidence of Stephen Thompson. And I think it's a minute winning strategy. I don't think this fight scores all that great, in my opinion. You could talk me into a Stephen Thompson underdog pick if Joaquin Buckley goes out there like an idiot. I can't tell you what Joaquin Buckley is going to do. He could go out there, with his ego and try to match the striking of Stephen Thompson. He could get picked apart just like Jeff Neal did, just like Vicente Luque did, just like Jorge Masvidal did, just like Kevin Holland did. But I don't think that he's going to do that. So despite Kevin Holland beating Joaquin Buckley and Thompson beating Kevin Holland, the MMA math does not check out here. I think that Joaquin Buckley is going to beat Stephen Thompson via decision.
Yeah, when you talk about the evolution of Joaquin Buckley, and you think about his time in Bellator, so he came up under Jesse Finney's gym there in the St. Louis area. Of course, he's gone around to various gyms, but back in that time, he was a straight-up wrestler. That's who Joaquin Buckley was, and we have seen that evolution of him turning into a striker. And look, you can't deny the fact that the UFC has made it very clear, like, if you are going to take the fight to the ground, you need to be exciting. We don't want you to sit there and just lay and pray. Is about the best. Is about the kindest way to put it out there. You know, that's not what the UFC wants. If you're going to take the matchup to the ground, we need you to be pursuing things. But to me, it is a clear path to victory here. To not have a kickboxing matchup here with Stephen Thompson. I think if Stephen Thompson loses, I think this is the last time we see him in the UFC. That's just my perspective. You look at the age, the run he's been on, the amount of money that he's making, the fact that all these fighters are being signed off Contender Series. I think there's several fighters on this card that are going to be on the chopping block. To me, Stephen Thompson's one of them. I think Joaquin Buckley gets the job, but I do have some concerns if he doesn't make this a mixed martial arts matchup. You know,
totally agree.
If he makes this a stand-up kickboxing, boxing type matchup, I have concerns about him getting picked apart by Stephen Thompson. So we'll see what happens there. Next up, we got Marina Rodriguez taking on Iasmin. Lucindo minus 190 betting favorite, plus 164. Marina 7,600 DK, $12 on FanDuel. Lucindo 8,600 on DK, $17 on FanDuel. And Pete, I kind of have the same thought as we were talking about the last matchup here. Is if you tell me this matchup plays out on the feet, I don't mind taking the dog shot in Marina Rodriguez.
Yeah, I'm with you. I totally agree. I think that Marina Rodriguez is good whenever it's a kickboxing fight. Her Achilles heel is definitely her wrestling and her grappling. She can get taken. I mean, like I bet on this woman to come through a lot, and she can still get taken down pretty similar to how she's always been taken down. I mean, I don't necessarily see the development within that part of her game. She's live to getting finished on the ground via submissions as well. She's lacking tremendously in that department. She's very tough. She comes forward. She has high volume, but her aggressiveness can be used against her if you can chain together a takedown or two. You can win moments. I think that's what happens here, Jason. I do. I think that, Iasmin Lucindo goes out there and a fighter who averages 2 takedowns per fight. I think she takes down Marina Rodriguez, and I think she either takes her down multiple times throughout the 15-minute contest, or she takes her down and subs her. I think that Lucindo's pretty damn good, and despite losing the fight in her debut to Iasmin Jauregui, I think she's the better fighter. I mean, look where Jauregui is at right now. Like, Jauregui's fallen on hard times of just being so chinny and getting knocked out left and right, and that's very rare in women's MMA, but it's happened, and it just goes to show you that, like, the live dog, like the dog, a part of Lucindo, like, it was glimmering a little bit in her debut, but we're really starting to see her potential inside the UFC. So I'm back in Lucindo. I mean, I know strength of schedule favors Marina Rodriguez, but the takedown element is the trickiest part of this. And I think that Lucindo is going to go out there and put together a very good performance. I like her a lot. I really do like her a lot. And perhaps I'm off all week, but like I think that she's a pretty decent play and part of the mid-range. Like I'm going to get to her plenty. And a fighter with wrestling upside and sneaky submission upside, kind of speaks to me at that mid-range. So give me 8,600 Iasmin Lucindo to pick up a pretty big win over Marina Rodriguez.
Yeah, but like I said, if you tell me that if she is unable to get the fight to the ground, that's where taking a dog shot maybe is something I would consider there. Next up, then we got Austin Hubbard taking on Alexander Hernandez. Hernandez is minus 160 betting favorite, plus 135 for Hubbard. Hubbard 7,600 DK, $12 on FanDuel. Hernandez 8,600 DK, $19 on FanDuel. Look, I think Alex Hernandez should be the favorite in this one, but my main concern with this one is, if he doesn't get Hubbard out of there inside 10 minutes, could we potentially see Austin Hubbard take over in the third round, get a late round finish, and it's just due to a gas tank issue?
I think that's what's going to happen. I mean, we can kind of, we don't have to go as in depth with these next 5 fights just because I think that they're pretty binary. I mean, like Alexander Hernandez, very good early round finisher. Outside of that, he's not very good in a 15-minute contest. Hubbard trains at elevation. Hubbard is, a guy that's underperformed within the UFC, but we did see his potential against Max Roshkopf. I think that, Hubbard can go out there and show that he can be live from a takedown aspect. Like, he can take down Alexander Hernandez, and that's something I never really thought a part of Hubbard's game. But training at Team Elevation throughout all these years has really rounded out his game. He's not just a striker. He lands takedowns at a decent level per fight. And he's just going to wear on Alexander Hernandez. I got Hubbard either with a late round finish or with a decision victory over the guy who notoriously gasses in every fight. And against Jim Miller, he was able to, have better cardio than Jim Miller. But Jim Miller has Lyme disease. You know what I mean? Like, Jim Miller is not a guy with incredible cardio to begin with. So, like, I think that Hubbard's in a great spot to come through as an underdog here. And I'll be backing him. I think that he's one of the best underdogs to get exposure to just because of what his opponent has shown time and time again. So 7,600 Hubbard, sign me up.
I mean, to me, Alexander Hernandez is just one of those guys just it's tough to trust when we're talking about developing our DFS lineup. So, yeah, I don't mind the Austin Hubbard, but, I want to get to Hernandez too. When we're talking about multi-entries, I'd want to get to him as well in that spot. Next up, we got Almeida and Potieria. Potieria is a plus 300 betting underdog, minus 400 for Almeida. Almeida, 9,400 DK, $21 on FanDuel. Ihor Potieria is 6,800 on DK and $9 on FanDuel.
Yeah, I mean, if Potieria had any takedown upside to him, it would be a little bit more interesting. I mean, Kopylov took down Almeida 5 times. Budka took him down 3 times. And Lucas Fernando took him down 3 times on the Contender Series. Problem is Potieria is just a striker. And, he has his most notable win over Shogun Rua. He's dangerous, but there's levels to this game. And I think that this is a perfect matchup for Almeida to either cruise to a decision victory or pick up a knockout over Ihor Potieria, who has been finished in the past. I think that whether it's getting knocked out from Carlos Olberg, getting subbed by Michel Pereira, getting knocked out against Nicolai Negomariano, there's levels to the striking. Cesar Almeida is levels above him. He doesn't necessarily have to worry about a takedown threat here. I think that this is a very good matchup. Not my favorite spend up, just because striking spend ups don't pay off all that much. Just because sometimes it's a patient striking spend up. Whereas like in the second round, he knocked out Dylan Budka, scored 93. If he was priced differently, that'd be one thing, but he's priced at 9,400. And when I see Kayla Harrison there at 9,800, I'm going to do everything in my power to get to her. And then when I see Alex Pereira there, it's 9,600. I like him a lot too, but he could be patient as well. But I like Pereira more than I like Almeida. So 9,400, I'm not in love with the price tag, but I think Almeida wins pretty comfortably.
Yeah. Potieria is just a guy.
Yeah.
I can't put him in a lineup. I can't.
Yeah. I mean, you could if you knew he was really working on his wrestling. But even then, all these other guys have worked on their wrestling and implemented their wrestling, and it hasn't mattered against Cesar Almeida, besides Kopylov. Kopylov is very good, though, everywhere. So I don't really hold that loss over Almeida's head too hard.
Next up, we got Ryan Spann taking on Ovince St. Preux. I know there was a comment here from Mr. Grapefruit a little bit earlier saying OSP is my favorite dog at 7,000. Ryan Spann looks washed and done here. Ryan Spann, a minus 245 betting favorite, plus 200 for OSP. OSP, 7,000 DK, $10 on FanDuel. For Ryan Spann, 9,200 DK, $20 on FanDuel. I mean, look, you see the value in OSP, but I mean, look, this is a guy that's not just on the back 9 of his career. I mean, he's like on the back 3 of his career. But it's also Ryan Spann is just one of those guys that I've just never been able to trust, especially when you're talking about being at 9,200, even though I don't feel good on either side of this fight.
So Ryan Spann is one of the best round 1 finishers in the game, a part of the light heavyweight division. Ryan Spann's super volatile. We've seen his potential from time and time again. He goes out there and he knocks out Dominic Reyes. He goes out there and he subs Ian Cutelaba, who Cutelaba looked great last weekend. The problem is if you get him outside of round 1, he falls apart. He's quit at times. He doesn't have the best cardio. OSP has awful cardio, always has. For somehow, in some way, he went out there and out-volumed Kennedy and Jekyll into a decision. But Kennedy's a guy that doesn't necessarily show up from time to time. I think at elevation, this fight is horrendous. I don't even want to put either fighter a part of my lineup unless I have to. Like if I'm in a 150 max, of course, but if part of a single entry, the loser is going to score terribly. And even the winner might score terribly because I think that these guys are going to be leaning on each other for 15 minutes. Like, I mean, if somebody doesn't get knocked out in round 1, I'm expecting them to literally just like be drooling on each other, exhausted, because they both have horrible cardio. Every now and then we get light heavyweight and heavyweight stinkers where they go 15 minutes and it's just a slop fest. I can see that happening here, but I can also see Ryan Spann being the younger guy, has more pop in his shots, has better submission skills in my opinion. And despite OSP countering guillotine chokes the best with his Von Preux choke, taking him down, getting off to side control, and using his shoulder blade and his shoulder to put pressure on the neck in a submission reversal and capitalizing. I think that the fatigue is going to be too much, and Spann will pick up a finish here. So Spann either knocks out OSP or he subs him. I'm going to go with the sub. I think that OSP is just going to put his neck out there and have too much faith in that Von Preux choke, and he's going to get high elbow guillotined, similar to how he was against Ilir Latifi. So stay away, man. I'm staying away from this fight.
Yeah, it's one of those things of it's just don't feel good on either side of it. Even though OSP via submission plus 800, might throw a sprinkle on that.
Yeah, I'd rather bet on Alex Pereira via submission. Fucking A. I mean, just for me, I would rather.
I get you on that one. Next up, we got Carla Esparza taking on Tisha Pennington. This is a retirement fight for Carla Esparza. She's a plus 150 betting underdog, minus 180 for Tisha Pennington. Tisha is A700 DK, $17 on FanDuel. Carla Esparza, 7,500 DK, $13 on FanDuel. Pete, I'm going to tell you this right now. Have zero interest in this matchup from a DFS perspective.
Ooh, I disagree. Interesting. I totally disagree. And the reason why I disagree is because Carla Esparza has takedowns. And guess what? You have zero interest. She has takedowns galore. She has control time. And guess what? If you want to play Kayla Harrison, you're going to have to get some dogs at part of your lineup. They don't even have to score all that much. They just have to allow you to build up to Kayla Harrison. I am intrigued with this matchup because Tisha Pennington looked really good against Tabitha Ricci. The problem is Tabitha Ricci has gone from a fighter with tremendous takedowns and solid striking to a fighter that is really just focusing on their striking and then kind of trying to bail herself out with the takedowns. So she's fallen in love with her hands a little bit. And didn't really go to what brought her to the dance of just the absolute dominance in the grappling and wrestling department. Tisha's a fighter I always thought that she could get controlled pretty easily once she's down. She gets back to her feet, but like I think from a jiu-jitsu standpoint, she's lacking a lot. Initial takedown defense, fine. Against chain wrestlers, I'm not too fond of her game. I think I'm going to be backing Carla Esparza here, and I gotta throw this question to you as soon as I'm done with this. But like, I know she's talked about this is her final fight. I almost like that. She knows it's her final fight. She's not 1 foot in, 1 foot out. She knows. She's decided it's the last one. She's going to go out there, and I would hope to go out there and replicate the first fight that she had against Tisha Pennington. They've both have kids. They've both been away from the octagon the past 4 years for some time. Tisha's been in there a little bit sooner against Tabitha Ricci. I just think in women's MMA, it's not always going to be a banger. And Carla Esparza's resume has been impressive despite my lack of faith and my lack of, the optics don't look good, but she finds a way to win, and her takedowns are nasty, and her control time is nasty. I think that she can control Tisha Pennington. I really do. So I'm picking Carla Esparza here at 7,500. I think the Cookie Monster goes out on a win, and it might be a bad night for the Penningtons, bro. Oh, so let me throw the question at you.
Okay.
Would you rather a fighter be unsure about retirement leading up to the fight, but the discussion, or a fighter be open and say, this is my last fight?
Well, first off, I don't believe that R word. I don't care what you say.
But I know. You're usually right, too. Like, Jose Aldo's back fighting and, like.
But I would also almost sit back and say is, if it is your last one, will you maybe not fight the way you typically fight?
Why would you? Why would you switch it up?
I'm going to say this right now. Over under, the winner in this fight scores 55.5 points.
Oh, over.
I think it's between 50 and 60 points. That's why I don't
Stop it.
That's why I don't think Carl gets takedowns.
I think she does, bro. She's taking down everybody. She took down Zhang Wei Li.
I mean, look, from a price point, I get why you would be interested in that side, but to me, I'll flat tell you, this is an X out for me.
Oh, I mean, I can see why, but I've convinced myself, so I'm doing it. Give me Carla Esparza and win a decision here.
I'll go teach Pennington. Our first fight of the night is Court McGee taking on Tim Means. Dirty Bird is minus 190, plus 160 for Court. Court 7,200 on DK, $11 on FanDuel, while Tim Means is 9,000 on DK and $18 on FanDuel.
Dude, this card, I'll tell you what, I think I'm aging so much and like with the stress of this fight picking game, because like the fact that I'm going to be back in Court McGee here in 2024, what the hell am I doing? But I think I am, Jason. I mean, it's in Utah. You know, it's a guy that trains at elevation. Tim Means is from Albuquerque, New Mexico, so he's going to have some good cardio. But despite training at Albuquerque, New Mexico, Tim Means, for whatever reason, has shown, a susceptibility to fatigue over 15 minutes. Vegas is thinking this one's going the distance, over 2.5. I think it's going to as well. I think it's going to be an absolute grindy type of fight. And Tim Means utilizes his striking, but also incorporates his wrestling because he does coach a wrestling team. So he goes for wrestling pretty often nowadays. Does leave his neck out there to get submitted. Court McGee is a pace pusher despite, falling on hard times with his durability lately. I think the trickiest dynamic is the fact that it's southpaw versus orthodox. Tim Means, we'll switch stances from time to time again, but if he sticks with just his southpaw stance, I think it could cause problems for Court McGee. We do have Tim Means coming off a brutal knockout to Uros Medic. And I know that's 6+ months ago, but sometimes that chin's gone. And I know that Court McGee is, 3 TKOs within his entire career, but he has knocked down people in the past, like 3 of them inside the UFC. The threat of the takedown from Court McGee could open up a big shot. I saw him practicing a threat of a takedown, so he feints the takedown and comes up with a big left hook. I can see that landing pretty solid against Tim Means. And if that chin's not there, I think that he can hurt him. But I also think that the stronger wrestler of the two is clearly Court McGee. I worry about that straight left hand from Tim Means. That straight left hand is crispy. The hand combination's crispy. And, at times we see Court get hit with volume and hurt. If this is a couple years ago, I'm picking Tim Means because I didn't have to worry about the durability and the kind of the lack of fight IQ. But in a dog fight in his hometown, I think that Court McGee, the wrestling's going to be enough. I really do. I think the wrestling is going to be enough to win a decision here. I picked him against Alex Morono, and he looked really good. It almost came through as a very, very sneaky underdog. So, I mean, Tim Means can knock out Court McGee and make it look easy. This first fight of the night, I want to start, recording the stats for first fight of the night, because whether it's finishes or underdogs coming through, first fight of the night starting to seem like the most optimal pick in the world. It really is, Jason. And I know you hate avoiding it, but like from a building standpoint, I think it's almost a must start from nowadays. Like kicking the card off correctly, I think Court McGee does it. I think Court McGee might put up a pretty damn good score. So I worry about again when knocked out. But as far as being the minute winner, I think that he's going to be able to put together some good takedowns en route to a decision victory.
Let's just say, Court McGee, by the way, was one of those underdogs I was looking at in terms of GPPs, but I just put together a captain contest lineup. Ooh, I like what I created. Oof.
Oh boy.
Oof, I like what I created. Give me that 20K. Yeah. So I will say this: I have been playing more captain contests recently than your traditional GPPs.
Well, I play the captain contest the second my lineup because I do single entry and I put one lineup everywhere. As soon as that lineup's dead, I'm like, fucking captain contest.
And then and sometimes your contest gets dead early. You say, you know what? I guess I can just sit back and enjoy the fights. And sometimes that's
that doesn't happen. That time it's time to sports bet. That's what the hell we do there.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's pop up that app and see what kind of lines we can make there. But let's get into our straight up fight picks. Main event. Give me end still.
Yeah, and still.
I will go end new Pena.
I agree. I don't know how I agree, but I agree.
So give me underdog number 2 for me and Jose Aldo.
I'm gonna go Mario Bautista.
I'll go Kevin Holland.
Kevin Holland.
Kayla,
big time.
Buckley.
Lucindo.
I'll go Hernandez, but I have concerns.
How dare you? Hubbard.
Almeida.
Oh,
God. I don't feel good about either one of these. Give me the younger fighter in Spann.
Yeah, Spann.
I'll go Pennington.
I'm going Esparza.
Timmings. Don't feel great about it.
Court McGee for me. I'm expecting the picks to be weird. So good luck, everybody.
Yeah, I mean, and look, and obviously you kind of see how things play out here. The elevation is always obviously going to be a concern. In terms of that, go hop over to our Discord channel, get some questions in there before we get out of here on this episode of the Fight HQ podcast. Of course, as always, we appreciate everyone that tunes in each and every week to listen to me and Pete talk about what's going on in the world of mixed martial arts. Of course, if you want to check out my other podcast, Game Report podcast, a new episode, we were live about an hour ago, so be sure to check out that, as that's always much appreciated. Of course, we've got our memberships as well, so do appreciate that as well. Tristan, best leverage play. I think Pennington would be up there as a leverage play. Maybe Lucindo as another leverage spot.
Yeah, I like Lucindo a lot, man. I do like Lucindo a lot. I think it's a sneaky spot, too.
Takedown upside, I think the co-main event, I think is one to look at. Takedown upside in terms of that one. Kayla Harrison, Joaquin Buckley, Lucindo, I think would be another one. Esparza because of her history.
Yep. I think Court McGee, too.
So next one was ranking the 9K options. So our 9K options. So we got Tim Means at 9,000, Spann at 9,200, Almeida at 9,400, Kayla at 9,800, and Alex at 9,600. To me, it starts Kayla number 1. I think she's the best. To me, it's just a matter of whether or not you can play it. I think Alex is number 2, and then 3, 4, 5. I would say I would go. Means
Spann
would be my lowest.
Yeah, agreed.
And then
Spann Almeida Means for me.
Yeah, I would go with you there as well. Best punt play. McGee or St. Preux.
Yeah, it's gonna be Court McGee for me at 7,200.
Yeah. Top core plays. For me, the core for the most part, I would say, is Pena and Aldo, and going from there.
Pena and Aldo. I just don't know if that Aldo fight scores well.
No,
I don't think it does.
Legit, it's a great concern. Great concern.
Yeah. Do you think that Aldo scores better than Esparza in a win? Because I don't.
Well, I mean, if Esparza wins, I mean, to me, that tells me she's got takedowns. So, I mean, there's the clear takedown upside with Esparza, no question about it. it's always no matter what the mindset is, when you're already going and saying this is my last one, that's always kind of a little bit of concern for me. Best inside the distance fights/fighters. Fights, I think you got to look at the main event there. Fighters, Kayla Harrison.
Yep.
I think Almeida I would throw in there as it. Spann St. Preux is probably a fight that ends in a finish. I don't think that thing goes 15 minutes.
I agree with you. I think Spann does it. I mean, I don't know how. If OSP wins, this game don't make any sense.
Yeah. Value plays, I think I'd look at Pena at 7,800 and other value plays I look at. If Buckley doesn't utilize grappling, Stephen Thompson at 7,400.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is trying to put your finger on. They have a path to victory, but do they go that route? You know what I mean? Like, that's the hardest part. You can't control them.
Best decision odds, favorite parlay. So we look at best decision odds. You look at the co-main event. You look at Aldo, Bautista, Thompson, Buckley, Rodriguez, Lucindo. Esparza, Pennington would be the ones that have the best low odds when it comes to decision. If I'm doing a parlay, just looking straight up money line, I wouldn't throw Kayla in there just because it's 13-1. Just that really decrease your odds. I'd probably just throw Alex in at the top line ticket there, just feeling how confident there. And then if looking for a 2 and a 3, I'd probably go Alex, Lucindo at minus 190. And the third one, trying to find one with decent odds here. I'd probably go Kevin Holland minus 150.
I don't hate that at all.
Jason Pete special. There is no A200 fight this week. The first fight of the night, Pete, you bring up a lot of great points. It seems like that fight's becoming more and more optimal every week. But man, don't feel good.
Embrace it.
That's got volatility written all over it. I mean, just two guys who are clearly towards the end of their career.
I think like every first fight of the night might just be a pick'em. I mean, if there's crazy discrepancy in the odds, just take the underdog. I mean, I know that sounds silly, but like, look at Bellagioki last week, and Chris Duncan went in there and guillotined the hell out of him. And very similar price point to Means and McGee. I just think that the first fight of the night, it's jittery. There's anxiety. You're kicking the card off. Like, sometimes people overperform and underperform.
I'll say this for last week for my Tampa guy, Matt Pravola. I hope he takes a good amount of time off.
Oof. That was bad, bro.
Yeah, I hope there is people here in the Tampa area and up in Long Island that can sit him to the side and say, you're not sparring for 6 months. But
that was bad. But that's what I mean. So,
but the reality is, in this sport, we already know what's going to happen. He's going to be back in the gym in 2 weeks from now.
Mm-hmm.
That's just I put the video in Discord. The reaction of Ray Longo told you everything.
Oh yeah.
And listening to Ray Longo on the Anakin Foreign podcast throughout the years, I just feel like he is that coach that will say, you're not coming into if you're coming to the gym, yeah, you can do cardio, you can do weights, but you're not sparring. That's always been my opinion of Ray Longo. That he's just that type of coach. Road to the Mansion over under 5.5. Give me over, and that is just, and the reason I'm taking the over blindly is just because of the elevation aspect.
That's why I got a little crazy with my picks this week.
Yeah.
Normally I wouldn't, but I pick like 5 underdogs, 6 underdogs. Normally I'm not that guy, but I think that on a card like this, it's going to happen.
Yeah, very, very much. We'll end on this. Joey T says, for GPPs, am I crazy to potentially have 3 or maybe 4 underdogs in the line? It feels like that time of week. Great way to get different. Great way to get different.
Yeah, I'm with you, man.
Pop over
4 is awesome. That's what I got. So I have 4 underdogs this week, and it allows me to get to who I want, which is Kayla Harrison.
Sam, appreciate the super chat there. Ryan says top value and top MVP for FanDuel. Looking over the FanDuel, I think there's a decent amount of value. I like the value of Kevin Holland at $16 on FanDuel. I would also say I think Austin Hubbard $12 as a salary relief in terms of that, and I think it's a fight that I do see it hitting the third round. I think sometimes in FanDuel when it comes to MVPs, just don't overthink it. I think either take Alex Pereira or either Raquel Pennington or Julianna Pena. Just don't overthink it.
Yeah, I agree.
Especially the fact of Pennington and Pena likely. I would be relatively surprised if that thing doesn't go 25 minutes. I would relatively be surprised. And I would think if there's a finish, I think it's more on the Pena side than the Pennington side. But we'll see.
Yeah.
I mean, I the way things have been going the past couple weeks for me, maybe everyone should.
Bro, that's what I'm saying. I don't know. I got to reevaluate everything. I mean, it's been bad. It's been bad from a pick standpoint for me. Usually, like I'm floating above 70-something%. I'm like teetering on like 60, 50, which is still good, and some weeks even worse than that. I'm like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, and of course, next week we have the Fight Night card, Brandon Royval and Tatsu Taira. That's actually a really nice in terms of a main event for a Apex card. This is one of the final Apex cards that's going to be here for a while here. Looking ahead just kind of next week, which I guys expect on the show. Brad Tavares versus Jung Park is currently listed as a co-main event. Grant Dawson versus Rafa Garcia. Daniel Rodriguez, Alex Moreno. That could be a nice little scrap between those two guys. Looking at some of the ones that may stick out to me here.
Sounds like another card of us difficult fight predictions. Jesus Christ.
Oh, what, you say you can't wait to break down Chris Barnett and Junior Tafa?
I can. I'm fine with that. Tafa wins. Tafa wins. I tell you that right now.
Oh, man. Yeah, it is.
The other stuff, it's just like I'm picking between a trash can and a dumpster.
Brian, the line on Means and McGee minus 190 Means plus 160. I know Brian's lives here in Tampa, so we can only do the Hard Rock app. So Brian, sometimes I see it maybe not till like Friday night, early Saturday morning, maybe that first Friday night. Also, if you look at the Hard Rock app, it may be listed under something else. So sometimes just search the fighter's name and it might come up of what you get there. But that's a little hat tip when you're working with that Hard Rock app.
What's it listed under? Pickleball?
Sometimes it'll be the same UFC card, but it's like listed under two different events.
Yeah. Like how Best Fight Odds does it. They have sometimes they break the card up accidentally. Yeah. So hopefully everyone has a great weekend. Hopefully it's a great night of fights for UFC 307. Of course, be sure to join our Discord channel. Totally free to join there. Great conversations going on there throughout the week. And on Fight Night, of course, we got our DraftKings contest up there as well. Be sure to lock into that. Always a nice little contest. Let's try to fill that thing up. It's set up for 100 people, so we'd love to get that filled up here. Of course, be sure to smash that thumbs up button if you want to become a member of Fight HQ right here on YouTube. We much appreciate that as well. Pete, anything else you want to leave the listeners with? No, I want to say thank you guys, through the ups, the downs, the good cards, the bad cards. Jason and I doing this because we love it. We love having the fights back. Granted, we wish they were better quality on some of these cards. But it's just tricky. So you got to be able to embrace the volatility on a week like this. Don't be afraid to spend, to leave some salary on the table this week. I'm telling you. Weird stuff is gonna happen at Elevation. So best of luck. Make sure you guys post your screenshots within the chat, and hopefully we're all duping at the top.
And that is going to do it for this episode of the Fight HQ Podcast. We'll talk to you next week as we get you ready for that Apex card headlined by the key flyweight matchup between Brandon Royval and Tatsu Taira.